rainy and nasty night. So grateful to see you here. There's sometimes when Zoom comes in very handy. I am Dr. Whitlow. I work for the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards. I think I've met several of you because I recognize some names. And I am going to talk tonight generally about competitive awards and things you might want to be aware of. And then also I'm going to talk specifically about some things that ODK offers and urge you strongly to apply for those things, because I don't think that the applicant pools are probably overwhelmed. And so I think that's always a good opportunity. I always encourage all students to apply for any funding through their honorary. So whether that's Phi Kappa Phi or Alpha Lambda Delta or ODK or any of the other things that you belong to me, the value of some of these honoraries is not only your right, the relationships you build with other students, but the fact that you can get money for your education or for your graduate studies. I think that's really key. So just to introduce a little bit more about my office, and I'm in the Funkhauser building. I think probably it said that on the last slide. But I mostly work with the things that are funded outside of UK. So I'm not very helpful with financial aid. I am working with things, a great percentage of which you apply as a senior to go abroad after you graduate or to do graduate study after you graduate. But there are also things during your other undergraduate years. So, well, I'll let you read the rest of that. I don't know if this will work. Let's see. Did you hear it? Nascite ipsum. This is to know thyself, right? It's Latin for those of us who are not classicists. And this is really important. In the awards that I work with, I think knowing yourself is really critical, because almost all of the things that you would apply for through my office or that I would work with you on, you have to write a personal statement. You have to talk about your career path in pretty specific ways. And so you have to know yourself. What is it that you want to pursue? What is it that you're truly thinking of doing? What are the things that really excite you intellectually? Why are you doing the kind of service that you do, and what is the value you place on that? So knowing yourself is a really important element, I think, of being successful in competitive awards. And it's hard. It's hard to know yourself, right? You're exploring a lot of things, and you have lots of different avenues that you can go. But that is one of the things I encourage you to think about. And one of the ways that we try to get you to think about that, another one is, how do you want to tell the story of your time at UK? So when you get to graduation and you're looking back, what is the story you tell somebody? What is the 2-minute elevator pitch that you give, right? How do you tie the things together? Because you're doing a lot of stuff, and not everything is perfectly connected to everything else. If you sing in the choir, that may not have anything to do with your major, right? But there are reasons why you do that or why you value it. It is helpful, though, to have a series of connections in your academic life at UK or your service life or your social life, to think about those connections and what ties the thing together of things that you did and like to do, so that you can tell a story about that. And that's really important for competitive awards. It is something that we don't, unless you're prompted, people aren't necessarily thinking of that early. So then when I prompt people late in the senior year, they're like, it's a hard thing to do, to sort of tell the story of your 4 years, to give a brief summation of what it meant to you and what you got out of it. I also encourage you to think about developing your own expertise. And students will push back on that and say, well, I'm learning, I'm an undergraduate, I don't have my degree, I can't be an expert, but you can. So, Abigail was saying she's in human health, like you could pick an area within that field of study. You could pick a research topic, you could pick a class topic, and you could think about, how do I learn a lot more about that? So let's say it was nutrition. You can do research in that field. You can see about having some service related to that field. You can do an internship in that field, and more narrowing down on a topic. So maybe it's specifically, a certain type of vitamin, or what calories do or whatever, but you can become more and more expert on a topic in your field, such that by the time you graduate, you do have an expertise. And a lot of students who go on to some of these major scholarships, the Rhodes, the Marshall, they do have an area where they've spent a lot of time learning. And so they have developed a lot of depth, which becomes really important. We all have, we have a lot of breadth, but sometimes it's shallow, right? We are interested in a lot of things. We've learned a lot of things, but it may be pretty shallow. You also want some things where you have, if you can see, right, where you have deep, where you go really deep, right? And so that you know a lot about, you can't do that with every single thing you're interested in, perhaps, but you can do it with some things during your time here. So these are things just for you to think about as you prepare to apply for graduate school, as you prepare to apply for competitive awards, as you prepare for work assignments. I mean, these are kind of things that are important for you. And one of the things I put it first, I think, is because sometimes students don't start paying attention to their network. They may pay attention to their social network with other students and people in the honorary, but they don't maybe have their network of faculty and people that will write their recommendation letters. And it's important to do that, because you want people who know you well and can talk about your ambitions and the things you want to do and the things you've accomplished in a natural way, not just relisting some resume bullets that you gave them. And I have some suggestions there for how to do that. I mean, attending office hours is an obvious one, but you shouldn't neglect it. But also being a good citizen of your college. I think that sometimes we don't know how to do that, or our academic department, but I know that you've probably already had this experience at UK. Faculty have invited some speaker in, or they're going to have some kind of event, and usually those would always be in person, and now they may be on Zoom. But and they send out increasingly urgent emails to all the majors saying, please come, please meet so and so, or please come listen. And a lot of students will ignore those, right? Because they don't feel like they know a lot about that particular subject, or they're afraid that the research will be beyond where they are in their learning. But it is a good idea to pick some of those and to go in person if you can, to get on the Zoom, to greet other people in the department or faculty that you know, just to say hello. And they do notice and they do care about that. And that is a good thing to do, also to give yourself another way to be noticed in your college and to introduce yourself by faculty. You can always sit in the back and leave after 20 minutes, right? If the subject matter is very esoteric or very far over your head. But on the other hand, you may find something that you're really fascinated by. I used to go to a lot of lectures on campus, just of things that were not related to any area of study I had, but just because I enjoyed them. And some of them I barely understood a word, but some of them were really, really fascinating. So that's something to keep in mind. It doesn't mean you have to attend everything that your college does or your department does, but you should attend enough that they start to get to know you as a very strong and interested student. I also want to say, in regards to the GPA, when I say maintain a strong GPA, sometimes students translate that to 4.0, and that is not what I mean. There are very few or none awards that would require all of their applicants to have a 4.0. There are awards like Rhodes or Marshall where they do want you to have, I mean, most of the students who receive it do have very, very strong GPAs, 3.7 and above, and probably closer to the 3.9 and above, So there are a few for which that is a very important criteria. But if you get your first B or your first C or a couple of Bs, it's not over for you in terms of your scholarly achievement, your ability to apply for awards. Sometimes that happens because you've had a particularly tough semester. Sometimes it happens because you've taken a lot of challenging coursework, which I want to encourage. So I don't want you to diminish your competitiveness, because your GPA is not a 4.0. And there are some awards, the Truman, which is for leadership, people who want to go on in public service, and Fulbright, which is an international award, that don't really care about GPA. So it's not something that all awards really value. I am moving fairly quickly, and I should have said to all of you that I don't mind if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. We're a small enough group that I think we can be informal that way, or you can put something in the chat. Lynn will monitor and let me know. So feel free, if you have something that comes up, to go ahead and ask now, but we'll also have time at the end. As you're thinking about applying, you want to have outcomes, you want to have results, not just a series of activities. A lot of you were involved in a lot of things in high school, and that helped make you successful for getting into your colleges. But some of them you were very active with, but some of them you were very lightly active with. You mainly attended meetings. And I see sometimes students duplicate that at UK, particularly early in their academic career as they're developing their interests. But one of the things you want to think about as you go along in your semesters is thinking about, what are the things that I do that I actually can show people what I accomplished, that I may have been the leader of a student group or active in a student group, and I may have helped grow the membership, or we may have raised a certain amount of money, or we developed a signature event, or we did a lot of service hours, or I did some undergraduate research and I got a paper published, or I was an author on a paper, or I did some research presentations and got accepted to a conference, or I'm involved in a service activity where I was able to make a significant contribution, not just spend a few hours. But I do think you want to think about those kinds of things. Oftentimes, when you apply to graduate school or jobs or competitive awards, they're interested in knowing what you achieved, not just a list of things in which you were a member. And then again, you can read most of these, and Lynn is recording it so we can send it out. And the skill, it can be an internship. It can be, it can be a very deep knowledge of your subject. It doesn't have to be playing a sport or doing undergraduate research. Challenge yourself when you're at UK. I know sometimes it feels very challenging every day. And the last 2 years, of course, have been very challenging. So I want to acknowledge that, that it's been a tough time to be a student and to be in the world, really, but also be willing to push yourself. We often work on our strengths, and that's good to do, but we sometimes don't work on our weaknesses because that's more frustrating. And so think about that. If you're not, if you don't have a strong background in statistics, but you're going to need it for some of the things you might want to do, don't avoid it, get better. Same thing for the last bullet, practice. If you're a strong writer, become an even stronger writer. If that is your weakness, then work on it. If you're terrified of speaking in public, find ways to do it in very tiny ways. Ask one question in class, speak up in the Zoom, find a way to learn how to be able to do that, because that's going to be important for just about every environment that you're in. And learn how to interview. And it is a skill, and there are people on campus that will help you practice. You'll never have a safer environment with people who are more dedicated to seeing you succeed and seeing you do well and helping you learn that. So this is the time to get some of those things, to get some more experience with some of those activities. I'm mentioning, well, we went straight to that, didn't we? Okay, we have a list of awards that you have to go through my office to apply for. So These are the awards for which you have to be nominated. Some of them are in STEM, some of them are for languages, some of them for research. So a variety of awards, and there are about 11 or 12 of them. And so these are things I want to work with you well in advance. Oftentimes the application for the Fulbright, the application is submitted a year in advance of the time the person would actually take up the award and go, right? So you want to, same for Rhodes, you know, so these are awards that you have to be preparing your whole academic career, really, and you have to be thinking about the application probably a year in advance. So it's a good idea to let me know that you're interested in some of these things, even if you're a first-year student or a second-year student and you're thinking you want to apply for something in your senior. All of these have deadlines that are very early in the senior year. And so it's important that I know so that I can be aware that you want to do that and that I can be following along with what you're doing at UK. And it's not my role to tell you, oh, you should be doing this or that, but it is to help reflect to you, okay, so you say you're doing this and this, does there appear to be a gap in there? Or could you do more of this? Or you say to me, you want, sometimes students will say to me they want an international career, but they're not taking any languages. And so I try to say, well, how realistic is that then for some careers? So I would strongly encourage you to look at some of these awards, but to also think about coming to see me and to make an appointment, and we can talk more about your personal circumstances and the things you're interested in. Now, I do want to say also, we work with a lot of applications that are direct application. So the Gilman, for those of you on Pell Grants to study abroad, or the Critical Language Scholarship, which is a language immersion in the summer, and the application is always in the fall. We work with students on applying to National Science Foundation, both for the summer research experience for undergraduates, but also for the graduate fellowship program that you can apply as a senior, and it helps fund you in graduate school if you're in STEM fields. So there are a lot of things that you can apply on your own, but we encourage you to use the Nationally Competitive Awards Office because we might have some experience with that award, and we can help you think about what they're looking for in that award. Sometimes it seems obvious, but maybe the prompt is opaque, and it's helpful to know sort of how other people have approached that. So I absolutely encourage you to come see me. Now, because you're all in ODK, we wanted to talk specifically about the things that are available to you, because there's a fairly good sum of money. And you still have time to apply for some of these national awards. And I absolutely would hope that you would give it an opportunity. Now, in this particular case, some of these awards, you have to be senior class status. Now, Lynn, do you know if that means they have to be in their 4th year, or because a lot of students have senior credits? I don't know if Lynn heard me.
I did hear you. Sorry, I was turning my mic on. I believe that it is for like graduating.
Okay.
So it would be at the 4th year. So
this is one of these things where, you know, the credit system has changed, but some of this terminology has not changed along with it. So when they're in this particular case, this is what I assumed, is that they're wanting you to be in the year that you're graduating. Now, some of you may be graduating after 3 years. And so technically that 3rd year would be your senior class status. And so you would be eligible at that time. But you can't be a sophomore with senior credits and then apply, but even though you're going to be here 2 more years. So you would want to think of this as being your final year. And then you can see the other requirements of that. There is a single link, and it's there at the top, where you go to apply. So they do it differently from some others where they would have separate, they have a whole series of awards, and I think we have it. Okay, so they have a number of named scholarships, and you go to that one link and apply for those. And they actually have a lot more on their website, but some of them, like one is for students only at Clemson, or, you know, so they're, sometimes they're very specific to an institution or a region of the country. So we picked out the ones that seem to be open to any student at UK, or depending on your identity, some of them would not be, but there would be students at UK that would be eligible probably for these particular awards. And so you can see the amounts there. Now, none of these are going to fund your graduate studies entirely, but the nice thing about applying for an award like this, it usually doesn't take too much time, and you can layer these on top. They're going to pay the money directly to you. And so you can layer these on top of other awards that you get for graduate school, or other funding that you may have. So, and that's very nice, because it may be that you're a little bit tight in graduate school, and having an extra $1,500 or $1,000 in your bank account to help you pay for incidentals would be very useful. It also shows, right, that you have this record, that you've been recognized as a scholar by this honorary society, and that can be helpful the next time you go to apply for something at your institution or for a national award. So it's good to have, you know, a bit of a record that you're building. And you can see that there is a Chelgren Family Endowed Scholarship, and Mr. Paul Chelgren also funded the Chelgren Center at UK and the Chelgren Fellows Program. And so we also want to try and support and have our students apply for that as well, because he's been so special to UK. There are also some UK specific ODK awards. So you have to be a member of the organization, you have to be a UK student. And so we want to show you these. These are not open at the moment. They will be open in December for the next application cycle. So this is something to sort of put on your calendar or make a note to remember, and come back and be able to apply for some of these awards. And you could apply for the other awards that I mentioned on the previous screen, and then you could apply for these as well. So it would not be a limitation. Jerry Claiborne was a former coach, for those of you who are not aware. And it's wonderful that they have an award for a transfer student, because you don't see as many of those. So that's a terrific opportunity. If you're a transfer student, you know, I would think the odds would be pretty good. Now, I just wanted to let you know we have a website, and you can look at awards, and we are in the process of trying to have a new website. And so we're developing that, and that should be hopefully up by this summer. But so it's a little bit overwhelming to look at the list of awards, and there is a small tool that will help you sort out, but you still get a huge list. So I understand it can be a little overwhelming to look at that. And that's why I say, please make an appointment with me and I will try to help you sort through. But it's also a good idea to look at that sometimes and just get a sense of how much funding is out there, right? In all kinds of different categories for all different kinds of majors. So to do language study, to do research, to go in the summer, you know, for something during the academic year, there's a lot of different opportunities. So I would encourage you to take a look at those opportunities, but also to know that it can feel overwhelming, I know, and I'm happy to speak to you about it. Are there other questions that people have? I know I've gone through kind of quick, but I'm happy to answer. I don't want to talk about too many awards in too specific detail, because I don't know who's interested in what. But I will, if there's something that you are particularly interested in, just let me know and we can go through it a little bit right now.
This is Scott. My main question is, the slight confusion I have when you say is for fourth years applying for post-graduation scholarships for when you leave UK?
Well, if you're going to graduate school. So for example, Scott, what academic year are you now?
Grad student.
Okay, so ODK, that's a good point.
So you have to be going to grad school then.
Well,
for those.
Yeah, and Lynn, I assume that even the UK ones are for students going to graduate. I mean, they can probably get those while they're in their undergraduate year, right? But also as a graduate student.
Yes, the new Circle Awards, you can, yes, it could be either. Mhm.
But
That's
if
for
you
our children.
are, yes, if you are an undergraduate student, for example, and you're going to be leaving, graduating, and going straight into the workforce, then a lot of those awards wouldn't apply, unfortunately, because they are to fund graduate studies. I will go back and see if they all are. Well, it does say alumni, so you could be out of your undergraduate years and maybe decide to come back to graduate school later and then use that for graduate or professional programs. So it could be graduate study in math, it could be professional study in pharmacy or medicine, right? So both of those categories would be eligible. Does that make more sense, Scott?
It does. I think I'm in a situation where maybe none of these will apply. I'm graduating from grad school, but I'm always looking for professional development. But I've also a physician who's graduating from my fellowship as well, so I'm doubling up.
Okay.
So I'm just always looking for ways to pay off student loans.
Sure. Yeah, so these may not be, and I don't know if they have any awards for a professional. Do they have, we could look at that and try to see, Scott, if there are other things we could recommend. I mean, there are awards out there for people in mid-career, for professional. There are other kinds of opportunities. It's just in this particular presentation, we were focusing more on, awards for students or students that are getting ready to go to graduate school. But there are other things out there. So if you wanted to send me a note and give me more specifics on your situation, I would see if I could find something, but they're probably not through ODK.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Other questions? I guess I could. I appreciate very much you guys logging on this evening and letting me talk about competitive awards. I really love working with students on these opportunities, and I'm happy to, for those of you who are putting in graduate school applications or writing essays for medical school and stuff, I'm happy to help with those kinds of things. So just reach out to me and let me know if I can be of service. Are there some other things specific to ODK that you wanted me to mention, Lynn?
I don't believe so. And Abby is on here as well, and she's the president of ODK. Abby, did you have anything to add about scholarships, maybe that you've learned in any of your leadership meetings that you've had?
No, just that you have to apply senior year or whenever you're graduated and you're in a graduate study. And that's what most of ODK's scholarships go to further your education and your leadership.
Okay. All right. And there were no questions in the chat as well, Dr. Willow.
Well, I certainly appreciate the turnout. I think there were more students than we expected. So thank you all very much.
And if you want to review this recording, for those of you that chimed in late, we will be posting this on the Children's Center and the Nationally Competitive Awards YouTube channel, probably late next week or early next week, excuse me. So.
Yeah, and let me reiterate one more time. You can reach out to me. It's pat.whitlow@uky.edu, and I am happy to meet with you in person or Zoom with you in person. Well, I guess it's not in person then. Zoom with you virtually to see if there's a way that I can tailor my advice to be a little more specific to what you need. So thank you. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.